Alright, hi guys, Starshaped here. I want to bring my thoughts about the latest patch 1.31 that's hit the PTR by now. So what I'm going to get into, I'll basically read the changes and the dev comments, and I'll get into my own thoughts for each change. And then I also want to talk a bit about the elephant in the room, and that elephant being the fact that Night Elf has basically not been changed. But we'll get to that. So let's just go through this step by step. I'm gonna skip all of these bug fixes and world editor changes because I don't think it's very important for this discussion. I guess I made some updates that I guess just some bugs that they fixed. And then the very first change here, the hero balance changes. So start the Blade Master. Windwalk. Cooldown now occurs when Windwalk breaks. Reduced the cooldown of Windwalk from 5 seconds to 2 seconds across all levels. Critical Strike now benefits from all damage once again, not just base damage. So the dev comment here. Reducing critical strikes damage sources lowered overall burst and had the downside of making his stats unclear. The Blade Master was also able to strike and fade away without recourse if Windwalk was activated 5 seconds prior to get attacking. These changes increase the Blade Master's damage, but leaves him vulnerable to counterattack. So I think I agree about the stats being unclear the way it has been, like what benefits the critical strike and what doesn't. However, I still think that we've had quite a long time now with the nerfed critical strike, and Blade Master still seems like I'd say the best hero in the game still, like he's always been. He's definitely the standard hero in most matchups or every matchup, despite the critical strike. So I would say overall this is a pretty big buff. Like I'd rather, if I played Blade Master every game, then I'd rather have the critical strike back and have a pseudo nerf to Windowwalk. So like in my opinion, you could definitely just remove the critical strike buff and just nerf Windwalk, and Blade Master will still be strong, still be the best hero. But so having said that, I never play, when I play Orc, I don't play Blade Master that often. So I don't really have a horse in this race, so to speak. What I would love to see for the Blade Master is a further change to Mirror Image. I think at this point, if you made Mirror Image cost 0 mana, it still wouldn't see play. So you should definitely look into that. A lot of people are talking about giving the image some sort of damage output, like 20%, 25%. I think that'd be a cool change. So, moving on to the Dark Ranger Life Drain. Life Drain now applies the Dark Minion effect of the current rank of Black Arrow, requires at least 1 point in Black Arrow. And the dev comment here. Drain Life and Black Arrow didn't synergize. Black Arrow's short debuff meant Drain Life was unlikely to result in a Dark Minion. This change benefits Drain Life by letting it gain the intended effect but not damage bonus of Black Arrow. This is a pretty strange change. I mean, it's the only hero I can think of is Tinker that has this kind of synergy between spells where his passive will affect his other 2 spells. But in this case, I mean, if you go Silence and Black Arrow, then there's no synergy. But if you go Life Drain and Black Arrow, there's synergy, which is kind of strange. And I don't really see a situation where you want both Drain Life and Black Arrow. So I mean, the dev comment here is that Drain Life and Black Arrow doesn't synergize, which is true. But I mean, a lot of spells don't synergize. If you go Archmage, you're not going to go Blizzard and Water Elemental. You'll pick one and you'll pick the Aura. If you go Pit Lord, you won't pick Howl of Terror and Rain of Fire. You'll pick, one and then the passive. So I don't think it's that strange to have spells that don't really synergize. And I have a hard time seeing a situation where I'd ever want to get Life Drain and Black Arrow with Dark Ranger. Because either you're getting her third as Undead, and then you're doing it just for Silence, or you're getting her first as Night Elf, which you'll definitely get the Black Arrows and then the Silence. But maybe someone will figure out some cool build order with Black Arrow and Life Drain. Moving on to the unit balance changes here for Orc. So Tauren, Pulverize. Tauren now starts with reduced Pulverize that deals 20 damage. The Pulverize upgrade has been changed to Upgrade Pulverize, which increases the damage of Pulverize to 60. Upgrade pulverized lumber cost reduced from 250 to 225. So the dev comment. Prior changes made the Tauren totem easier to construct early, but it is still rare to see Tauren on the battlefield. This change is intended to make your first few Tauren more viable to take over your front line. Reducing the upgrade's lumber cost also helps with the transition. Overall, your upgrade cost is similar to a fully upgraded Night Abomination. I have to say that I think this is a great change. Just like the dev comment said, like, you're never going to make Tauren without Pulverize, whereas with like every other unit in the game, you usually can make them before they're upgraded. So I can make Knights without Animal War training. I can make Griffins without Stormhammer. I can make Abominations without Disease Cloud. Like, they're not super essential. But with Tauren, you definitely need the Pulverize before they're even useful. So I think this is a great change. We might actually see Tauren being played with this change. Hopefully. Spike Barricades. Reduce the number of upgrade levels from 3 to 2. Tier 1 is 5 base damage and 20% of attacker's damage. Tier 2 is 5 base and 50%. And the dev comment. Spike Barricade has not had much of a role in high-level 1vs1 games, partly due to how long the upgrade takes to become effective and that it does not scale with high-tech melee units. Giving the upgrade extra percentage base damage increases the effectiveness against late-game units, and reducing upgrade level count should help with it coming online faster. This does make the upgrade more complex, so we look forward to hearing feedback about this direction. I'm not really sure how it makes it more complex, but my understanding of Spike Barricades was that it was meant to be anti-small melee units. It was supposed to be efficient against ghouls and footmen and skeletons and stuff like that. I never realized that it was supposed to be good against high-tech melee units. But if that's what they want, then yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Perhaps we'll see Spike Barricades now. If it's going to be efficient against, well, I can't even think about a lot of melee units. I mean, maybe the Tauren that they buffed in the Orc Mirror, maybe we'll see some Tauren take damage on Spike Barricades, I don't know. Not the biggest change here. I don't think it's going to affect the game too much. Human Knight. New upgrades Sundering Blades. Research at the barracks. Requires a castle, lumber mill, and blacksmith, which is the same that you need for building knights. 100 gold, 100 wood, 40-second research time. Increases knight's damage against medium armor by 50%. So let's see why they justify this. While the knight is quite formidable in single combat with other units, we wanted to improve its role versus medium armor further than the default damage bonus of 150%. This allows knights to be more threatening versus ranged units they chase down, such as Crypt Fiends, and increases their ability to fight against mountain giants. So if we read between the lines here, this is basically an anti-Crypt Fiend and anti-mountain giant upgrade. Well, it's basically spelled out for us here. The only reason they're doing this, I guess, is to make knights better against Crypt Fiends, which I don't think they're bad against already. I don't know why knights would need more damage against Crypt Fiends. In my experience, it's never been an issue. And as far as mountain giants go, like in the current metagame, you don't even need knights. You can beat mountain giants with just rifle morts and priests. So this might make knights viable against giants, but the question is, do they need to be viable? And are they already strong enough? My initial thought is that I don't think this upgrade should be in the game. It's not necessary. It's not a fun upgrade. Nothing cool happens. It's just a 15% increase against medium armor for some reason. And this is kind of where, I mean, at this point, I guess I'll just state that I think that these dev comments, especially further down, are sometimes quite lacking, because I don't think they're actually telling us why they make these changes, which is what we really want to know. Because if you make an upgrade that makes this unit better against medium armor, then of course it's going to be better against units with medium armor. I can deduce that by myself. So I don't need the dev comments to say that, oh, it's going to be good against Crypt Fiends. I understand it's going to be good against Crypt Fiends, but the question is why. So the comment is, we wanted to improve its role versus medium armor further than the default damage bonus of 150%. But there's no follow-up. There's no reason behind this, which is what I think most of these comments are lacking. I want to know exactly why. What are you basing this change on? Why did it come about? Has there been a lot of feedback that knights are bad against crypt fiends or what. Like, I just want to know the reasoning behind it. And I think this is going to be a common theme for most of these comments going forward. Animal war training. So basically, animal war training, a third of the upgrade is just given for free as the base stat, and then you get the rest from the upgrade, and the upgrade costs 125 wood instead of 175. And the comment here, this change is intended to help human players transition to their tier 3 units. Increasing base hit points should help reduce the reliance on animal war training, and reducing the lumber costs should slightly help the overall transition to these units. Considering some of the huge changes they're making in this PTR, this is one of those really minute ones that I don't think has any impact. The only one that stands out to me is the Dragonhawk Rider, which I think now will not die to one Bat Rider anymore with the 50 hit point increase, which could be game changing in certain situations, but the rest of these, I don't think it's going to matter. So Orb of Fire, bonus damage reduced from 10 to 5, no longer gives area effect damage. So they're basically going back on what they changed from the beginning completely. New effect. On hit applies a debuff that decreases the effectiveness of healing abilities and hit point regeneration by 50%. Debuff lasts 3 seconds. So this is huge. This is like a huge thing. Let's see how they justify it in the comments. By shifting the Orb of Fire into an anti-healing role, human players will be better equipped to focus down enemy units in the late game against powerful healers like the Death Knight. So it says like the Death Knight, but I think they mean the Death Knight. This should directly benefit many of humans' potential late game unit combinations such as riflemen, spellcasters, and griffins. While this debuff is most easily applied by a ranged attack hero, it should also be very helpful on melee ones as well, since its effectiveness is not determined by the raw stats of the unit holding it. As this is quite a large departure from the previous Orb of Fire, changes to this item are likely. So that's good to know, because right now it looks like it's completely overpowered in my opinion. They haven't mentioned the cost, I don't know if it's going to do the same, but yeah, this is the anti-Death Knight Orb, plain and simple. And again, the comments, they explain that this will give human an anti-healing role. It's like, yeah, I understand that because I just read what the orb does. I know that it's going to make healing less efficient. So I don't need the comment to tell me that healing is going to be less efficient. I want the comment to tell me why. Why does human need to be better equipped against Death Knight? Why doesn't Orc or Night Elf? I just want to know. I'm not saying this is a bad change. I'm not saying that they don't have grounds to make it. I just want to know what made them think of this. If you know what I mean. So again, in the future dev comments, I would love to see more reasoning behind why exactly this change was made. What reason is there really? Moving on to Night Elf balance changes here. So the Glaive Thrower Vorpal Glaives upgrade now increases projectile speed from 1400 to 2400. No longer guaranteed to hit his primary target. No longer changes to do damage in a line. Instead, Glaive Throwers keep their pre-upgrade circular area effect damage. Alright, the comment. We looked into solving the issue of Glaive Throwers with Vorpal Glaives upgrade always doing full damage to their target by making its projectile homing. After feedback and testing, this solution is being shelved. Instead, we will change the upgrade to increase the projectile speed of the glaive while allowing it to still miss they should probably proofread this a bit better. While allowing it to still miss its target, similar to other siege weapons. This leans into the Glaive Thrower's personality of being a high velocity siege weapon while fixing the bug. I think this is pretty good. This is a good comment, and it's a good change. Vorpal Glaives, as they are now, are pretty silly. It kind of ruins the Night Elf mirror a bit, and it definitely makes the Glaive Thrower feel less like a siege unit and more like a high DPS glass cannon type unit. It's hard for me to visualize what this speed change actually means from 1400 to 2400, but I guess we'll see. But I think it sounds like a good change. Hippogriff Riders, base stats. So basically, if you watched me talk with Neo when they first released the patch notes for 1.30, then I mentioned that there's a discrepancy between the Archer and Hippogriff Rider hit points, which are now fixing. So I think that's smart. I like to see that. Just makes it more consistent. Hippogriff Rider is an archer and a hippogriff, so the combined hit points should match. But yeah, it doesn't really affect anything. Moving on to Undead, the Gargoyle. So movement speed increased from 350 to 400. Gold cost reduced from 185 to 175. Oh boy. So let's see how they justify this. Increasing the speed of gargoyles to match flying machines and hippogriffs should allow them to better choose when and where they want to fight. Reducing their cost also helps in general with making them a more competitive choice against crypt fiends. Moving Stoneform to Tier 2 was also a piece of feedback we considered, but are not moving forward with right now, as increasing the gargoyle's mobility and ability to regenerate hit points at the same time could push their harass ability into being too oppressive. So this is, I think, an example of a good comment here, because we get some insight into the gold cost specifically being for the Undead Mirror. I can't really comment on that matchup too much, but at least there's a specific goal behind it. They want gargoyles to be more efficient against crypt fiends. So if you're playing like Lich Ghouls and gargoyles, it's going to help against Death Knight crypt fiends. And they also talk about how they were considering the Stoneform, but didn't go with it, which I think is great, because that would probably be too oppressive. However, I still think the gold cost I can't really comment on. It seems innocuous to me. But the movement speed, Undead has a hero called Death Knight. And Death Knight has an aura called Unholy Aura, which, among other things, increases the movement speed. So I don't see why this is necessary. I think this is going to make Undead even more oppressive. Because when you have gargoyles against hippogriffs, for example, Undead always chooses when the fight occurs, because they have faster movement speed thanks to the aura, and they have Frost Nova and Coil Nova combination. So they can definitely already choose exactly when and where the fight's going to happen. So doing this is just going to increase that problem. And you might think that, yeah, well, if you don't go Death Knight, if you're going like solo Dreadlord, then this is a good change. I guess, maybe. But the problem is that there is a Death Knight, and most likely that Death Knight is going to be played, and then having this increased mobility is just going to be super annoying. That's my prediction, at least. I don't think that's a necessary change to make. The only change I want to see to gargoyles is the AI. I want the AI to always choose air attacks over ground attacks. So if I attack move a bunch of gargoyles, I want them to target air units first and ground units secondary. That's the only thing I think they should change. Moving on to the Necromancer. They have a new spell order, so Cripple, Raise Dead, Unholy Frenzy. Obviously before they had Raise Dead as their first spell, and Cripple as their last spell. Cripple is now 85 mana, reduces movement speed by 75%, reduces attack speed by 10%, and reduces attack damage by 35%. Alright, Unholy Frenzy. Renamed to Incite Unholy Frenzy. Now 125 mana, still 500 cast range, ability area effect is 250, which is a pretty big area. Sacrifices a target-friendly undead unit, aka a skeleton. All nearby non-mechanical units gain Unholy Frenzy. The Unholy Frenzy buff is unchanged. So it's an AoE Unholy Frenzy as their ultimate spell. Skeletal Mastery now requires Adept Training. Alright, let's... this is the one that I guess everyone's kind of... one of the ones that people are going kind of crazy over. Let's see how they justify this. Currently, necromancers must be produced in large numbers right away in order to summon many skeletons, as their single target spells are locked behind the necromancer training upgrades. This commitment to necromancers can be problematic, as the opposing player has a large window to scout and prepare. We want to address this by rearranging and revamping the skills of the necromancer so that producing a few early on can provide value right away, while amassing them later still lets players summon a large skeleton army. A weakened but cheaper version of Cripple at level 1 gives Undead a new way to single out and chase down enemy units at tier 2. The new version of Unholy Frenzy is intended to combo with the Raise Dead. By sacrificing a few of your skeletons, a couple necromancers can power up a whole army. It can also be used to sacrifice low hit point units to deny experience for the opponent. Since this is a very large change to the necromancers, it's likely that adjustments will be required. So, they mentioned it in the comments, the ability to deny experience. I think this is a mechanic you have to be very careful with. If you give Undead too many ways to do this, which they will now, they'll have Dark Ritual, they'll have Unholy Frenzy, and they'll have the Ritual Dagger thing that we'll get to soon. In the hands of a really good player, and to me that just spells out your opponent not getting a single bit of experience. Like if you deny everything consistently, I think it's a pretty big problem. So the spell itself, I don't think is super impressive as an ultimate spell. I think it'll be fun. I think it's a good change. And I mean, this comment I think is also quite helpful because I agree with a lot of the points. Necromancers are very predictable compared to other casters. If you scout Necromancers, you have like 5 minutes to prepare for the Necro wagon push that's gonna come. You know it's gonna be that. That's the only thing that Necromancers can do really. So it is a smart change. It is good to make Necromancers more viable and more less one-dimensional. But the cripple, this is the one that I think is going to break the game. At least Orc versus Undead, I imagine. Because if you imagine like the tier 2 kind of all-in push with level 3 Death Knight, so level 2 Coil, a mana potion, level 1 Lich with Frost Armor, 1 Necromancer, 1 Banshee, cripple Curse the Blade Master, and what's the Orc going to do? And that's going to hit so early as well, because you don't have to research Adept. It's just there available from the start. So maybe Orcs are going to have to go Shaman. And that'd be kind of silly. You have to get Purge out just to deal with the Necromancer. I don't know. I'm very worried about this specific cripple spell here. Might ruin the game a bit. But like the comment says, adjustments will probably be required, so we shouldn't go too crazy just yet. Ghoul Frenzy, increase attack speed bonus from 25% to 35%. Alright, why are they doing this? The prior upgrade didn't make ghouls strong enough to make up for how poorly they trade versus other races' similarly upgraded units. Increasing the attack bonus by 10% changes a number of unit relations to better favor ghouls in direct combat. Additionally, the change to necromancers having cripple right away should also assist ghoul effectiveness at tier 2. This is another one of those comments where I really wish they would give us more information, because this sentence, increasing the attack bonus by 10%, changes a number of unit relations to better favor ghouls in direct combat. I can tell by the fact that you increase the attack speed bonus from 25% to 35% that this is the case. I don't need the comment to tell me that increasing the attack speed from 25 to 35 is going to make ghouls stronger. I know that's the case. I want to know what specific situations they have in mind. These so-called unit relations should better favor ghouls. Which ones are you thinking about, and why? That's what I want to know. If you say that ghouls are not strong enough to make up for how poorly they trade versus the other races similarly upgraded units, I want some examples. Give me some examples, because this is a very, very general comment, which really doesn't say much at all. I want to know exactly which situations these devs are thinking about and why. That's all. Just give us some insight, not just these. By making ghouls stronger, we'll make ghouls stronger. Like, yeah, I get it. But again, I want to know why. So, the new item, Ritual Dagger. Oof, this is a big one. Bought from the Tomb of Relics, 125 gold, 2 charges. 20-second cooldown between charges, 1 in stock, 90-second restock time, 400 cast range, 300 ability effect radius, available at Tier 1. Tier 1. Effect, sacrifices a friendly undead unit to heal 100 hit points to all friendly non-mechanical units around it. Alright, so this is the third kind of sacrifice mechanic for undead so far. This one, again, on paper, this is completely insane. I have no idea how they can possibly justify it, but let's find out. The dev comment. With this item, the undead race will have access to an early game healing effect outside of the Death Knight. By using it in conjunction with Rod of Necromancy or Crypt Lord Beetles, undead players should have more options as to how they want to creep and fight early game. The current stats of Ritual Dagger are likely on the strong side, which is to help promote testing. Adding a new item like this is a large change, so we are going to be watching closely for feedback. So the current stats of Ritual Dagger are likely on the strong side, which is to help promote testing. Why does that promote testing, making something ridiculously overpowered? People are going to use it, and it's going to be broken, and you're going to have to change it anyway, so I don't know why that helps testing. I know I sound very negative and critical right now, but this item really doesn't make any sense, because the problem is, I think everyone can agree with the logic that If the undead has access to an early game healing effect outside of the Death Knight, that's great. I want Crypt Lord Fairs to be viable. I want, Tavern Builders to be viable. But the problem is that this item can just as well be used as with the Death Knight. You can play completely standard Death Knight Fiend statue against human, for example, with a Death Knight. You don't need to go any other hero. This is just going to boost that incredibly. This is a strategy specifically against human where like you're spreading damage across all your fiends, because it's usually fiends against defend footmen. You have statues healing AoE. Now you also have a deny mechanic that is basically a heal scroll for 125 gold. Uh, doesn't make any sense at all. I think it'd completely break the game if this ever makes it out. Uh, and it doesn't appeal to me as an item either. Like even if they nerfed it from 100 hit points to 50 or 25, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a fun item. It's just frustrating to deal with sacrifice effects. I'd prefer another solution that perhaps doesn't synergize as well with Death Knight Fiends. Maybe to promote other heroes and other strategies. So moving on to the items. Boots of Speed removed from the default Creep Camp drop table starts with 2 stock on Goblin Merchants after initial cooldown. Comment. The primary goal here was to prevent network connectivity wars for the first purchase. Moving Boots of Speed out of the default Creep drop table is experimental. It's one of the last items that can be brought at the Goblin Merchant and dropped by creeps, and by increasing the starting stock, the item should naturally be more available to both players. So I completely agree with this. This is a great change. Anyone who has played on Netties like I have, we know all about this network connectivity war, and we always lose it. If I'm playing against a Chinese player, I'm not going to get the boots. Very frustrating. So I think that's a great change, and also removing it from the creep drop table I think is great, because let's say you're human on Echo Isles, your opponent's Night Elf, it's Archmage against Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter gets Boots of Speed from the Mercenary and just right clicks your Archmage. You lose the game pretty much, just because of the item drop. It's a pretty silly item to have as an item drop, so this is great. I think a lot of people have wanted both of these things for a long time. And yeah. Ring of Protection, basically every ring just gets 1 plus better. So ring plus 2 becomes ring plus 3, and 3 becomes 4, and then plus 5 is removed from the drop table. And the comment. We get quite a bit of feedback about the rings of protection being underpowered compared to other items in their tier, so we are increasing the bonus armor they provide by 1. We are removing the highest tier ring as it is often less impactful for heroes who obtain it compared to other options in that tier due to how armor has diminishing returns as more is added. Yeah, I agree. Rings are really boring items. They're not that impactful. Usually it's the last thing you want. So making them a bit better. You could honestly just remove them from the game at this point. Like nobody likes those rings, I don't think. I like it if I'm going Paladin with Aura, just because I get a lot of armor, but that's pretty much it. Cloak of Shadows. Heroes carrying this item can now Shadow Meld during the day as well as night. Using the hide ability also works with units that have Shadow Meld. So the comment. Currently, Cloak of Shadows has a low desirability among many players. It also is one of the few items that deactivates for portions of the game without player input. Making it usable during the day should give it more flexibility. I think this is a pretty cool change, and it also means that if you're going Warden or Priestess, that Cloak of Shadows isn't a useless item. It's actually going to have use during the day. So yeah, why not? Tome Experience no longer a random drop from creep camps. Hallelujah. Let's see why. Experience comes with the blood of your enemies. Oh yeah. We believe one of the core fun parts of Warcraft 3 Melee is the tension between players and how they level up their heroes. Tome Experience changes this by giving the player who finds it a big bump in power, but in a way that an opponent cannot prepare for or predict. Since this tome already has reduced effectiveness in late game, there was concern that simply reducing its experience amount would make it feel uninteresting late game, while still maintaining its issues early game. So we're gonna remove it. Great comment, great reasoning behind it. I agree. I think people wanted this for 15 years, if not longer, and finally it's happened. No more stupid Tomes Experience. Warsong Battle Drums, so now basically they're the same as the Coda-based aura, so orcs can't get double aura. This is currently the only aura, I'm reading the comment now, this is currently the only aura item that stacks with a similar aura from one of the playable races. This is a slight nerf to orc, but it does make the aura items overall more unified and operate without acceptance. Yeah, I agree. Great change. So the Lion Horn and the Scourge Bone Chimes are both just buffed up to correspond to level 1 auras. And the comment, as a baseline, aura items should at least be the same as level 1 hero ability. Since Devotion Aura and Vampiric Aura were buffed, we are increasing the effect of their respective aura items as well. Makes total sense to me. Parry up to Vitality, gold price reduced from 350 to 325. Currently, this is the only item in its tier that is more expensive than others. We want to reduce its price slightly to make it more desirable to purchase it from the Goblin Merchant. Well, I've got some bad news for the devs because if this parry app costs 325, it's still never ever going to be bought from the merchant. It's completely uh, not worth 325 gold ever. In free for all, this is bought all the time, but in that game type, this change isn't going to matter at all. So if you want parry apps to be bought in 1 versus 1, they'd have to go down to circlet level cost. I think even maybe 150 gold or something like that. Nobody's ever going to buy parry app. Crystal Ball. Item level decreased from 5 to 3. Gold price reduced from 500 to 300. The comment. At level 5, the Crystal Ball is noticeably less powerful than the other item drop options. It does provide free scouting, which may be helpful, but perhaps more helpful in the early game than later on. Yeah, good comment. I agree. I'd like to see the Crystal Ball become free of charges. So it's like an Arcane Tower with the upgrade, like you just get a cooldown. You can use it throughout the game. I think that'd be the best to make it a bit more attractive. Sentry Wards, duration decreased from 5 to 3 minutes. The comment. High level feedback is that while this item's duration is already lower than the Witch Doctor Sentry Ward already, it still provides too much scouting information overall. I agree. The problem with Sentry Wards is that most of the maps we play these days are very tiny. Usually there's like 2 openings that you can put 1 ward on each of those openings. You get to see the entire map. It's basically map hack for 5 minutes, and in this case 3 minutes. I'd still say they're too strong. But again, it depends on the map. On a map like Twisted Meadows, for example, they're not that great. But on a map like Amazonia, you basically see the entire map with 2 wards. So moving on to the map changes, they remove Plunder Isles and Tristfall Glaives, which is great because those maps are terrible. And then they add Nomad Isles and Ancient Isles, which are both quite old competitive maps. I'm surprised they added them at this point because they've been removed from most of like the Cups and Neddies. I think Ancient Isles is fine, but has some issues. Nomad Isles is too good for Night Elf and Human, I would say. But they are making changes. They're not saying exactly what changes they're making, but they are changing both of those maps, and perhaps they're going to be more balanced, hopefully. Northern Isles are making a bunch of changes. I won't go through all of these, but again, I would love to have a little comment. If you're going to change the natural expansion or the red creep, then please tell us why. Why are you removing the Drake and adding something else? Why are you removing the Golem and adding, a Tuskar Trapper? Don't just say why. Don't just say the things you're going to change. Please let us know why. I'm sure there must be a reason behind it. I just want to know what that reason is. Yeah, a bunch of changes here, and I think that's about it. So, what I'd like to drive home from this is that I wish the dev comments were more insightful. Some of them I think were great, but a lot of them just kind of state the obvious, like we buffed this unit, so this unit becomes stronger. But please tell us why. Give us specific situations, specific maybe statistics if you have them, that you're basing this change off of, because I don't like the idea of making changes for the sake of making changes. Like, oh, we want to make knights better against fiends, because why not? So my shout out wish for all the devs would be to please provide some more specific comments. And also the big elephant in the room, like I mentioned, of all these changes, the only change to Night Elf was the Glaive Thrower. And this is just not enough, because I'll just go out and say it, well, okay, they also changed the Hippogriff Rider, but that's a very, very small change. But I'll be the first to admit that, whether or not Keeper is imbalanced, it's definitely ruined the game at this point. Like, I love playing Keeper. I love that hero. I love mass hunts and expansions. But, it's obvious to me that most players don't. So it's definitely like every matchup that Night Elf is involved in is worse today than it was before the patch. And also, I would say that again, whether or not it's imbalanced doesn't really matter to me. Watching someone like Life or Moon or any of the really top level Night Elf players has really become uninteresting at this point because it's always just keeper mass. It doesn't like it. It's not impressive to look at. It's not something you look forward to. I don't want to see how well Life can play keeper mass hunts because it's a very limited strategy, I would say. So again, I'm not going to go into to whether or not Night Elf right now is imbalanced. I just want to say that it's just not fun. I don't think for people. Like people don't enjoy playing against Entangling Roots. It's a very oppressive spell. It's very oppressive for a long time during the game. It should probably be nerfed. You need to change the keeper. You need to bring back the bears. You need to do whatever, Especially now that you buffed Tauren and Knights, then you should definitely unnerf the bears. So I'd say definitely that's the big elephant here in the room. The fact that Night Elf is unchanged and uh, like a lot of Night Elf players aren't enjoying it. Most people playing against Night Elf aren't enjoying it. And again, I love it. I'll be the first to say that I love playing this style of Night Elf. So for my sake, I'd love to not nerf the keeper or anything related to what's going on right now. But for the good of the game, it definitely needs to be done because people are not enjoying this. All right, so that was my little video about the patch. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and hopefully going forward, we'll see whether or not these changes will break the game. If they're going to change them, hopefully they'll make a lot of changes to this. Huge patch. It's gonna be an exciting rocky road in front of us to see how this all plays out. So I'll see you guys later. Goodbye for now.